Jones.
Awesome. Is this working? Good. Thanks. I really enjoy coming out to California. You know, it's a couple places that are really nice, and it's not bad when you come out here. Everybody takes care of me. I told the joke last time I was out here that I enjoy coming out here because it's the one place that you can recognize to be whatever you want. I can go to the women's bathroom. It's okay. I recognized last time I was here as being skinny and rich. So, you know, things are a little different today. I understand that. And I have two case studies. When Tom called me and asked me if I would come out, Tom says, would you mind coming and teach again? I said, no, I'd love to. What do you want me on? He says, well, I need you on a case study. I said, yeah, no problem. I have plenty of them. He says, yeah, but I want one that you've done all kind of testing on and that you've used different things to do, not the typical testing, just stuff off the wall. I'm like, whoa, now that's a little different. So this first one that we have, well, let's talk about it for a second. I have two. One of them's just for fun. It's a funny little case study. It could take about 5 or 10 minutes. Do you want the funny one first or do you want it last? Last. All right. So that's the way we'll stay with it then, because this is not the funny one. The first one is a complex case out of Shreveport, Louisiana. Let's see if this thing works. Look at there. On August the 2nd of 2016, we was contacted to go conduct an incident that occurred on July 31st, resulting in injuries and later a person died from these injuries. And we're going to get to more information on that. Of course, the standard of care at the time was NFPA's 921 2014 edition. And we also referenced the 2017 edition. And we used 1033's 2014 edition. There you go. 2014 edition of 1033, 2017 edition of 921, and the ASTM standard 678-07. Of course, we've all know about the new one that just came out, 2021 edition. Of course, Randy's here giving us some updates on that. But within the PowerPoint, I do have a couple points that we talk about. So the edition of 921 was approved as an American National Standard on April 25th of this year. And of course, we're going to use the scientific method as we're going through this. All 7 steps. I think y'all are about wore out of this slide. There has been some changes from the 2017 edition within the scientific method. And the biggest thing was changing the developing more than one hypothesis to hypotheses. So, and that's your 7 steps. So you recognize the need, define, collect data, analyze the data, develop the hypothesis, test the hypotheses, and select the final hypotheses. So the big change from 2017 until today, in 2017, we had 4, people like to call it the stool or the foundation that you could look at to set your investigation or to analyze your scene. And those 4 then was witness statements, fire patterns, fire dynamics, and arc mapping. But we all know that in 2021, 2020, it was removed, and 18.12 now only gives you 3 steps or 3 legs of that stool to sit on to determine your area of origin, determine your what happened at the scene. So some of the things that you want to think about going into these larger scenes is, of course, what are you going to wear? We've seen all the safety things that's coming out now about Tyvek or about how you're going to take care of your PPEs, your jumpsuits or your work clothes. What are you actually doing with them? Are you washing them in your washer and dryer back in the fire station? Or are you taking them home and washing them? Or do you have a professional cleaner that's doing them, or you throwing them away. One of the biggest things we're doing now is using Tyvek. It's so much easier. You can walk up to the door, walk out to the to your scene, ready to go back to your truck, and you just tear out of it and walk away from it. So you're left cleaning boots and helmet, some of your items that you need to put back on your truck, but you're not taking your clothing and taking that fire debris and ash back into your vehicle. So are you going to need heavy equipment? Is there going to be a manpower issue? Do you need more than just yourself? Is there needs for drone or 3D imaging, ferro scanning? Are you going to be doing actual recorded interviews or translation? So I have a partner with the other side, sister company in South America, and I do a lot of investigations in South America. I barely speak English. I talk Cajun. Most of y'all, I'm trying to slow down so y'all can understand me here in California. And I really have trouble speaking Spanish. Cassie enjoys making fun of me when I try to speak my Spanish because it's really broken up, and I got Cajun, English and Spanish all mixed up in the same word, and it's just not coming out very well. So do you need somebody to help you with translation? What are you going to do in these other countries or these other areas? Or even here in this country, are you going to need translation on that fire scene for your victims or for your interviews? What are you going to do about subject matter experts? What subject matter experts do you need? And the sky, and we're going to talk about some of this more in this presentation, the sky is really wide open for you. Anything that you can think of, from having somebody identify the actual carpet material that we're standing on today, to trying to identify the material that this stage is made out of. I mean, it's really, what question are you trying to ask? And we're gonna, or answer. We're gonna talk more about that. What are you gonna do if this is a scene that goes on for days, weeks, months? What are you gonna do about meals? What are you gonna do about places to stay, transportation? What are you gonna do about restrooms? But it's pretty easy for most of us guys in the room to step into one of the burnt closets and relieve ourselves. It's not so easy for the lady investigators in the room, right? So what are you going to do? What if there's multi-parties and you have, you know, both sexes on the scene? Are you going to expect, even if it's just an all-male scene, are you going to expect people to actually step around the back of the building and relieve themselves? What are you doing for restrooms? So some of the scenes that I've been on this year, and I know some of y'all have too. I've seen some of y'all on some of the scenes, but we had one in Houston. It went on for over a month. Had close to 100 investigators on the scene on a daily basis. It was over, I don't remember how many thousands of pieces of evidence. That had to be planned out, especially now with COVID, for social distancing, to be able to find food, to be able to find places to stay when hotels are not open, even though we all had letters that was given to us by a judge saying that this scene needed to be processed. We had nowhere to stay because nothing was back open. So, you know, you got to be thinking ahead, trying to stay ahead of these things, trying to plan them out, or hire somebody that can do that for you. It may be somebody that can set up all those things, and that's all they're doing is processing it. I know Randy's company, SCA, was just that. They were hired to run the scene. They managed the scene, providing tools, providing tents for people to sit under, providing food on a daily basis. That's what their company did for all the investigators that was out there. And that was a huge help, having a company like that already had it planned and set up. And you know, the new norm now is everybody wants everything on Zoom. And welcome all the Zoom people that's watching me up here. You know, even that scene was being run live with video recorders. We had 3 different camera systems going at one time, so people could sit, and attorneys could sit in their office and watch the entire investigation going down from 3 different areas. And they had broken up the investigation teams where they had people doing gas testing, there was people doing evidence collection, and there was people doing documentation of burn patterns or structural damage and stuff. So you had broken up in 3 different areas, and the cameras are following these teams around, documenting it and putting it out onto a live feed for everyone. Cutting up because most of y'all came from the fire service, and it carries over, and you're still trying to play pranks on one another and do all that silly stuff. Well, it's not good when everything's being recorded plus voices. So most of these we've already hit. You know, if you're traveling to other countries, do you need vaccinations? Do you need something? What's the difference in the laws there? What are you going to do about collecting evidence? If you go down to Honduras, you can't just pick up evidence and put it in a bag and collect it. Won't work. Doesn't work in the court system there. You have to have a basically a justice of the peace come and witness you and witness that location of that evidence and sign off on that he saw you pick up that piece of evidence and collect it in a proper way. And it has to be stored there in that country. You're not leaving that country with that piece of evidence. So we talked about translation, we talked about security, and you know, just all those different areas that you may want to cover on some of these larger scenes. What are you going to do about taking measurements? Are you going to have somebody come draw the diagram? Is it going to be done by your Faro scan or your scanning system? Is that going to be your drawing or your sketch? And then what are you doing about the other parties? Are you setting up protocols? Or are you giving an opportunity for everybody to see what's going on before they get there? Or is it going to be something that y'all discuss together once you get on scene? So this case that we have now that we're going to talk about is, I don't have a pointer on this. It works up there. I can point on my screen, but it's not working on y'all. So it's the, well, yeah, it is. Yep, there it is. So this is the house that we're going to be talking about. We're actually going to be talking about this little bitty shed that's right there in that back corner. So north is this way, west, back alley here, this back pool area is east. Of course, south is down here. So as we're talking about things and you see different witnesses saying things, you'll kind of see the directions. But we're going to be talking about this little bitty shed that's in the back. So we did a Faro scan on the scene, and let's see if this works. I'm not going to spend a lot of time. I just want to show you real quick. Well, and she's not moving, so I'm not showing you. It opened up into a bunch of files that she would have to tell me how to do it, and we're not going to waste the time. Basically, a Faro scan is just a 3D imaging of the actual scene. So it scanned the entire property, it scanned the area where the incident took place, and it gave you a walkthrough or a video or what they call a fly through of the scene, and we could have went through it and seen everything kind of moving around and looking up and look down. You could look at all around, but we're not going to waste the time doing that. This is the little shed. It's a little outbuilding on the northeast corner of the structure. Just a small wooden frame, wood frame structure that sits there just for storage. Access door to the alley, or a little gate to the alley, runs right by that pole with the meter on it. There would have been a gate there, or if we could walk around in the scan, you'd be able to see that there's a gate there that goes into an alley that ends up at this property. So if you went down the back street, it would come in and come to that gate, and you could take a hard right and go in between 2 houses to end up on the next street. But for the most part, the alley ended right behind this this house, and all uh, appliances or all company gas, electric that was underground, sewage, all ran down that alley. And what it did then is went underneath this person's house and shed. Right. This is looking at it from a different angle. There's your gate. So the gate to the alley would be back in this section here. You could go out into that alley and look down the alley all the way to the next street. And that's the sewer and electrical system that would come in there, and they had a manhole located just outside that, that area as well. This is their electrical system actually on the house. It would have been just around the north corner. And there's really no electrical damage. I'm only showing that because there's no electrical damage. There's very little damage to this house. This is the gas company later that afternoon after the incident took place. They showed up and they're digging a giant hole underneath the shed in this position right here. This is looking at it from the north side of the house, down their alley or down their back walkway, and we'd be facing east at the doorway to the little shed. So you're not looking at a lot of damage here. You've got some smoke and soot damage up here at the soffit. You got some fire damage coming out the door. You know, you don't have a lot of damage to the structure. Along that north brick wall, kind of where that where the electric panels were at, we found some texture material that had a orangish color to it stuck to the wall. I believe it to be skin. So one of the tests was to collect that and actually have it tested to see if it was skin or what it was. And it ended up being part of the skin of the victim that we're going to talk about eventually. So one of the tests is that you can test for different things, and everybody knows that. I mean, we could have taken DNA off of that. We could have done different types of sampling with that piece of skin. But, you know, first we wanted to identify that it was human related. It was, you know, that it was skin, and it was part of the person that was damaged, and that he suffered that much fire damage. Interior damage to the shed. So we're standing in the door looking at the south wall of the shed. That's the northwest portion storage area where he has a lawnmower, a water pressure cleaner, and, you know, gas cans and cans, spray cans and paint, and it's a typical shed. This is back in behind that hole, back in that hole where the guys are digging. As they're digging, they end up getting to the gas main. In the gas main, as they're exposing it, there's a crack that runs all the way through this 4-inch main.
You mean the crack is right underneath that round thing at the top, right?
Yes, sir. So this is. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. They can see the pointer. All right, good, good. All right, so this is a T that's coming off that actually goes to the residents to provide gas to their gas meter. Right below that T that taps into this gas main, there's a crack that goes all the way around. So after cutting a large section of the gas main out, we were able to transport it and get it into a lab setting so we could take a better look at it. Protocol was written on what we was going to do with it. And then after the first time looking at it, a second protocol was written so we could go back and do more evidence on it, or more examination on it. Again, if I can find my pointer here. This is the T that was coming out of the top of it that went to the residence. This is another T that went off to a different residence that we'll talk about. It's the neighbor on the south side. And it went to his meter in his backyard. This is a, I can't think of the name of it. It'll come up in a second. We'll have a slide just on this, but it's a boot that goes on there. But I was trying to think of the name of the actual boot. It's a material that they stick on there. It snaps together on the top, and then they put some heat on it. It shrinks around, and it locks down a leak as well. So it does protect the leak. Oh, there it is, a rake cam. So this is the snaps. It's at the top. It's just a material that you can shrink on there that will help you stop one of the leaks if you had a leak in a pipe or a situation. So some testing was done on this. We're trying to figure out if initially that works better. Okay, but this one does not work on the Zoom. Okay. All right. I'll keep going with this. So a protocol was written to do this test because the initial conversations were, did the track hoe, while helping dig out the hole, damage or crack the pipe? Did they put a chain around it to bring it up out of the ground? So did the chain crack the pipe? And the picture you saw a few minutes ago was a picture that we went back to after to see if the crack was there. We didn't notice that crack when we were first digging this thing out. So the picture that you're seeing right now is a lot, it was cleaned up. It was a picture of just taking pictures of the pipe, and then we went back and looked at it. So it was very hard to see that crack. It's not as easy as it is today on the screen because I missed it standing up looking down in this 4-foot hole. And then when they put a chain around it and beat on it and jerked it up out of the ground, and we did see the crack, we thought it was by that. So we were trying to test the different theories here to see what would happen. This is the electrical system that was taken out of the shed. So we took the entire system, took it to an engineer came on scene, electrical engineer came on scene with me, helped me collect it. And we went to a laboratory to do the examination of the electrical system. So we had an electrical engineer. We used microscopes. We used some scrubbing pads to go through the electrical system to see if we had any arc sites or any damaged locations on the actual full electrical system. We had a switch near the door that controlled a light, and I think we had one outlet. Yes, 2 outlets. So if you look up at the top diagram, there was 2 outlets, a wall switch, and 1 light. So a little bit of history about this piping. In 1911, Arkansas lighting system, or gas and light, put a gas pipe in the ground to light up Shreveport, to provide street lights to the town of Shreveport, or the city of Shreveport. So that pipe had been in the ground since 1911. Pretty old pipe. I doubt that house that it ended up, where the alley was at, was built in 1911. But at some point, a house and a shed was built, and a pool was built near and on this street, kind of over top of this 4-inch gas main.
So Rick, if I could ask a quick question, is it the outbuilding that's over the gas main, or the whole house?
Just the outbuilding. The outbuilding, and that, if you looked where the hole was dug, and you remember the picture looking back at the shed, that pipe would have continued to run on that walkway between the house and the privacy wall that they had built. So good question. I should have did a better job of saying that. But it ran underneath the shed, down underneath their walkway, next to their property, out to the street where it met another T and went in other directions. In 1991, NTSB put a special bulletin out about having problems with cast iron gas mains. In 91 and 92, they put a second bulletin out saying that you need to do something about these. We need to get them out of the ground. We need to replace them as soon as you can. In 2006 to 2011, the gas company that was involved with this ended up putting a plan into effect that over the next 9 years, they're going to make customers pay for the replacement of the cast iron pipe. 2012, they were not happy that the gas company hadn't done this yet, so they gave them another warning and said, speed up the process. We're having some problems. We had a large incident that people are getting hurt in Texas and in other locations with these gas iron pipes. And, you know, we need to get these things replaced out of the ground. One of the largest cases it was done till this case was in Texas, where a young girl had died. I think she was 11 or 12. The gas company was found liable, and I think they settlement was somewhere around $7 million for that death of that child. Yes, sir. Yes, and we're going to get to that, and we may get to that. So we go through and look at all the company records, all the policies. We got to go through records, and when you ask for records of a company like this, they dump millions on you, so that you have to go through everything possible to try to find that one. And they're not going to do you a favor and have a date on it that you can just go to a date or a location that you can just try to pin this location. Yes, sir. Yeah, sorry. So the question was, could I date that patch? What did I know when that patch was put on, or when that boot was put on? And yes, we were able to find out when that boot was put on. And there was a leak behind that boot. When we was able to test it and remove the boot, there was a small leak there, but it was not leaking around the boot. So we didn't have a leak there until you remove the boot. 2016, when this incident took place, just in the city of Shreveport, they still had 92 miles of cast iron to replace in the city. On a daily basis, throughout the city, throughout this 92 miles, they were getting reports about gas leaks on a daily basis. They had people running all day long with sniffers, trying to find leaks and classifying them if they were emergency to be fixed or if they were small enough to not have to worry about until a later date, because they were trying to replace everything. So getting to this incident, May 1st, 2016, the neighbor, that south neighbor, so that's that T that's coming off that you see in the one picture that was just yellow pipe, complains about an odor. The gas company comes out, finds a small leak at their meter in his backyard. So not at the main, but at the meter, and they patched it, and they found a larger leak at the corner of the intersection that came down in front of the house and on the south side of the house. They found a large leak out there that they said that they'll get to, but it wasn't dangerous at the time, so they were going to let it go. That was documented. It had killed the grass on the, in that area, but it wasn't something that they felt that needed to be patched at the time. And they associated that that's what everybody's smelling, is that leak that needs to be patched at the corner. So on May 6th, there was 3 people said, no, it's not the one on the corner. There's something leaking and it's bad in the alley. There was 3 different people reporting that. Yes. 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 Yeah. Yeah. So the question is, what was your poundage? What's the test? that was done on this. When we tested the patch, it was tested at a 1/2 pound PSI, and that's around 7 inches of water column or so. So, it's easier to stand up here and say in pounds per, in PSI instead of in inches of water column, but you're actually going to do the test in inches of water column. So yes, we tested it according to what is going through this. So this isn't those high pressure lines like you see in the ground today. It was going to go to that, but this is a low pressure, almost like what you'll see a lot of times on your appliances or on your system within the house. So if you're looking at CSST, you're looking at something like that, you may be dealing with a 1/2 pound of pressure, 7 inches of water column. Yes, Dale? No. Yep. Yep. So this is your system that's stabbing in your residents, is stabbing into that, running it off to their houses. So 3 reports on May 6th came in. They responded to the alley and they found a leak at that connection, at that T that came in. So they patched it. And they had to dig a big hole because this was a big area that they needed to get into behind that shed. So they used a track hoe to do it, as well as shovels, but they had the assistance of track hoes. If you go back, and if I can go back here, if we can see, and we can't really see it on this photo, but part of the patch was pinched in one area, and you could see that one tooth of the track hoe had pulled the patch, but it did not tear it and it was not leaking. So this did not leak. So they come out, patch the hole. The family there, where that shed is at, goes on vacation a couple days after that, around that same time. They go on a 2-week vacation to Europe. So they're not there. Their gas had been cut off to their house. So they don't have gas going to their appliances when they get back. So on May 20th, they return and they call the gas company to come out and relight their pollets. On May 23rd, when a representative of a gas company goes out there to the residents, the owner asked them to check the hole that was dug behind his shed because it was still open, never been covered up, and it was covered up with just plywood. So the hole is open. Now, normally I get the question that, why would they leave the hole open? There's all kind of stories there. One of them is that the sewer system, a manhole, was right next to it. The sewer system, when you would remove the cap, there was damage down inside of it that you could see the inner walls were cracked and there was cave in, it was losing dirt around the manhole. So we got something going on there and we got some dirt shifting. So one of the tests that I'm going to end up doing is finding out what kind of soil we have. Is it something that's going to compact? Is it sandy? Is it moving? Is it getting washed around? Do we have, one of the problems with gas migrations is, how's it going to migrate? Is it so compact that it's going to go a long ways? Do you have wormholes that stuff is coming up through, seep holes, water holes, or do you have a sandy soil that it can migrate up through? So I felt I needed to know that. I needed somebody to explain that. So I reach out and find somebody who specializes in soil that can look at ground, that can tell me underneath the microscope what we have and what we're looking at. So he was added to the team. This is what it looked like when the representatives went out there with the plywood still over the hole. You're looking at, there we are, right there. This is that door that would lead into the back alley if he was standing back by the shed, or it would lead into the backyard by the pool where the shed is at in that electric pole. And this is the gas meter. You can't see the manhole cover with the sewer, but it's right in this area here. And there was a lot of cave in, a lot of damage around it. So they were trying to figure out, and the theory is that, or one story that came out was that the city asked the hole to remain open so that they could try to determine what was happening to the sewer system. All right. So of course the city then gets put on notice because they're involved in this, that they may have told the gas company to leave the hole open. Well, if you know policies and procedures for the gas companies, the gas company immediately says in their policies that they're supposed to bury it up immediately after fixing it. It's not supposed to stay open. It's not supposed to stay open for any time. So I need another expert there because I don't know what policies and procedures are, even though I can find them and a lot of them are online. You can read them. You really need somebody that has worked for or been in the gas system that would know and can testify that they're supposed to bury it up. That is their common practice. They're not supposed to leave holes open. So another guy added to the team. So going back, you remember they come home after being gone for 2 weeks, asked about relighting the house, asked about the hole. At some point in time, it's very difficult figuring out when, but at some point in time, the hole does get buried up completely. We believe that there was a dump truck that came in and dumped a large amount of dirt and gravel on top of it. And we're going to go there and try to test that because we think that weight suddenly being dropped on top of a loose soil that moves could be what ends up cracking our pipe if you don't back dig it and put a supporting surface underneath the pipe if it's just shoveled in loosely. So if we look at this, there was a low area that the city around the city manhole where they came to check and they shoveled in gravel by hand, but they did not cover the hole up completely. They only did about 1.5 to 2 feet of shoveling when they went in that day around the manhole. On July 29th, the housekeeper for this house said that she could smell gas. She had her husband, who is the grass cutter for the location, go out to the shed and check it and leave the door open because he thought it was pretty high. And he wanted to make sure that he could air the shed out. On July 30th, the occupants, the owners of the house, smelled gas. On July 31, the lady of the house asked her husband when he got home to go out and check the backyard that it smelled like there was a gas leak again. And he is a known cigar smoker. He enjoys his cigars and he smokes them in the backyard. He leaves his barbecue lighter that he uses to light his cigars on the windowsill where you saw the orange material that I identified as skin later. So we think that he went outside and he either opened a door and went inside the shed, or he opened the door of the shed, or he's standing somewhere around the shed and he lights his cigar. This
My
husband's on fire. Something just blew up.
What's on fire?
My husband.
911.
It worked great 20 minutes ago when we were at that tape.
911.
My husband's on fire. Something just blew up.
911, what's your
My husband's on fire. Something just blew up.
So everybody that's in Zoom seeing, this is Cassie, this is my wife, this is the better half, the
911,
one that
sure.
listens to
My
the
husband's
run of
on
this
fire.
equipment.
Something just blew.
I just know how to work the end of a shovel. You go on the other way. Here, let me back it up. So this worked just a few minutes ago. I don't know what the problem is, but it's a lady's voice calling 911. She's standing at the kitchen counter, drinking a glass of wine. She tells her husband to go check. He just got home. He is a professor. He's
911,
a
My husband's on
a
fire.
professor at the
Something
local
just
college.
blew up.
He's
What's on fire?
in medical field. He's a doctor.
911, what's your
My husband's on fire.
Just
Something
returned
just.
home. She asked him to go outside and check this possible leak.
911, what's your
My husband's on fire. Something
She
just blew.
hears something and then sees her husband on fire rolling around in the backyard and walk himself into the swimming pool.
Blew up.
What's on fire?
My husband, he's rolling in the grass. Something blew up.
What was he working on?
Outside, it was a leaky gas. He went to smell it. It blew up.
Okay, what's the
Address
address now?
2437 Fairfield Avenue.
And it was gas from where?
Yes, in the alley.
Alley?
And I asked him to smell it, and he walked out and it blew up.
Okay, and he's on fire?
Yes, I'm gonna get his house. Please, he's rolling
Hey,
on the ground.
listen to me, I'm getting headed that way. How old is your husband?
He's how old?
How old is he?
He's 63.
60? 63?
65.
Okay, is he conscious and alert?
I guess so. I just read yes.
Okay, is he breathing normally?
Yes.
And he's on fire on his body?
Yes, and he rolled, and now he's in the pool. Something blew up.
Okay, and it was a gas leak at your house?
Yes, ma'am. In the alley, which has been leaking. I told him to please check it. It had been fixed already.
Okay, well, I'm getting headed that way while I'm on the phone with you.
Okay.
And, can you go back outside on the phone you're on?
No, ma'am.
Why not?
I'm on a landline.
Okay, you have a cell phone?
I can find my cell phone.
Okay, go out down the cell phone so we can see what kind of condition he's in.
Okay, I'm gonna have to call you back.
Okay.
Can I get
So
you?
we have all the other
Just
calls
call
as well.
911,
We're not going to listen to
Okay,
them today.
thank you.
Okay.
The purpose of letting you listen to that, she said a couple things in there, and I don't want to have to go through and play each one of them and go through whatever they just had to do. So I'm just going to kind of tell you and summarize some of the stuff. She said that she sent him out there to check the gas on something that she thought was already fixed. That comes up. She says that she sent him out there to check for a leak, and he was smoking a cigar. So those two things come up a lot in the hearing, that she sent him out there. All right, so, and she was drinking wine. So the comments from the back was that she was drinking wine and she sent him outside, and there was a life policy that was just renewed for a whole lot of money. All of those are true. Has nothing to do with this case, but they sure did say it a lot. And you're gonna hear it and see that part of it in a minute, but that was definitely something that kept coming up all the time, that they knew that there was a gas leak, that she sent him out there knowing that he was smoking a cigar, knowing that this was going to set her husband on fire. Well, let me ask you, does anybody know the energy that a cigar puts out? Is it enough to ignite natural gas? Is it enough to ignite natural gas when he's puffing on it? No. So the answer is from the audience here is that both questions were no. It's not enough energy in a lit cigar, and it's not enough energy when puffing on the cigar. Is there enough energy when you light the cigarette lighter to light your cigar? Yeah, probably so. Is there enough energy in the light switch in the shed to ignite the gas? Turning on or turning off? What's that? It does depend on the switch, and so the answer was it depends on the switch, and yes, it does depend on the switch. But what about where's your most, or you're more likely than not? Is it turning it on or turning it off? And the answers that was coming out was turning it off. Why do you think turning it off? It's breaking a connection, or it's a parting arc, right? If you make when you turn the switch on, it's two contacts coming together, the electricity can pass across, right? And continue to flow and energize or do its work or provide power to something. Well, when you turn that switch off, you're stretching those two contacts apart, and the arc is still trying to pass. And the further those contacts get away from one another, eventually the path is broken, and the electricity doesn't continue. Does a fire investigator need to be standing in front of a judge and a jury saying that? Probably not. Probably not. Even though I have training and as an electrician, not an electrical engineer. So I contact an electrical engineer, add him to the team. All right. So I think I'm at about 7 people on my team right now. Yes. Yes. So we found a bunch of cigars, and those reports are all going to come up in a second about law enforcement and police and all that. And we're probably going to flash through those pretty quick because I'm getting behind on time. But yes, there were several cigars that had been smoked all the way down to the paper ring, or a 1.5-inch cigar butt that was left, all in that alley and over the fence. There was more over the fence than there was on his side. I don't know why that is, but there was more on the other side. And then to what? Oh, he was trying to, yeah. So the question was was he trying to commit suicide, you said? Well, I think he was just trying to get rid of his trash on somebody else's neighbor, on the neighbor's property. So 911 shows up. Like I said, he's a doctor, he's a professor. He is still talking at that moment, but not good. He's starting to have problems with his throat. It's swelling up. They stick a tube down his throat, put him in the back of a box and start transporting him. They're not giving him any medication. When they get him to the emergency room, he writes his own script in the emergency room to tell the nurses to give him medicine. He writes it out and tells them what he wants. He's a doctor. He's being pretty bossy by paper, telling the nurses in the emergency room that he all knows what they should be doing for him and that they're not doing enough for him. Life goes pretty sour for him pretty quickly. He, within a day or two of this incident, he dies the first time, and they're able to bring him back. And we'll get to that in a minute too, how long he lives. So there was over 100 interviews, over 10,000 photos taken just by me. So I don't know if I have one of those fully automatic buttons on my trigger or if it's just a semi-automatic, but there was 10,000 photos that was taken. 6 multi-party lab exams that was done. There was multiple testing of the hypothesis, and it was over 50 depositions taken by the legal counsels that I was working with. This is on a shed fire, right? That's what we're talking about. So I wanted to remind, this is just on a very small shed fire, and you've got that much. Rule 26 report was written. Normally, I would be able to click on that little connection and show you that report. It might work. I'm not going to get too far into the report because Bob's going to come up here tomorrow. And this is where normally we take you and Cass would come up here and tell you all the different areas that we do in the reports and how we get the reports written. But I'm gonna leave that up to Bob tomorrow. So how come I can see it on my screen, but y'all can't? Because I'm in preview. Okay, so what do I need to do? So this is live on Zoom and I'm getting instructions on how to use my own computer. That's awesome. Yes. Yeah, just like my wife, he pushes a whole bunch of buttons really fast and I can't tell what he's doing. So I have no clue what he just did. But y'all still can't see it. There it comes. So some of the things we do is break it up into categories. And with that, we try to follow the scientific method, right? That's what you do. You want to tell the story by going through the scientific method, by using a methodology, and you want to talk about your methodology that you use, and that's how you want to break your report up, right? So these are some of the categories, and this is how many pages that we had. And I know I stepped out of camera. I'm getting fussed at. They didn't shock me. I don't have a shock collar on like Randy did, but they did throw something at me. So I can't find my mouse again. In a few years, when all this technology works out, this is going to be great to be able to teach and have, you know, a dozen people watching you and recording everything you say. But I'm trying, yeah, it's trying to move. I'm trying to move it, but it's not moving. So we're just going to see if we can get back out of this. Sorry. All these fancy technology things that I can't work for y'all. Oh, okay, he's rolling it. So you can roll it for me. You can stay up here with me. Here, there's your chair. Sit down, have fun. All right. So first page, we're just going to kind of give an overview. We give, you know, the basic information, a bunch of fancy logos that one of them up there that I spent a whole lot of money and a lot of time trying to be the first to be accredited, which now it's just a fancy logo that I spend a whole lot of money for. So on the other side is the actual index or the actual way that we have it laid out. And if he flips through, you'll see how it's broken up. We do add a little bit of color. We kind of like having the blue and the different colors it flashes out. It makes things a little bit easier to identify where things are at and read. Bob's going to get into what size font you're supposed to have and what your spacing is going to be and all that stuff. That's a Cassie and Bob thing, but what I like to say nerd thing. They handle that. I just, again, work the end of a shovel. So we make sure that we put our initials on every page. That's part of a accreditation, part of a standard that you're supposed to have. Identifying every page is something that you've approved or that you've written. You can keep going. Just kind of go through them fast. Overall instruction or introduction to the scene, what took place, all the different people that were interviewed, a basic overview of the scene itself. And then we started into the collecting data, analyzing that data. And what we're going to get to is the final opinion. So, you know, property description. So he's just kind of flipping through everything here, the panel, documenting the electrical system, documenting the alleys, the skin. That's a timeline that you seen him just flash through. that just lays out the different, oh, no, yeah, you can keep going. Of when the different examinations took place, the different non-destructive and destructive examinations. That's the history that we went over, the different dates. And then I added in this one, the actual history of the gas system for Shreveport. So it went through saying how it comes from the factory, how it was processed, and how it ended up at the user's stove. And then you had 1,000 pictures, and we don't need to go through those, but so yeah, that's fine. So that's the basic report. So am I back on? Yeah. Thank you. So part of the Rule 26 report, you want to make sure that you show your methodology. You want to show your basis for the investigation findings. You want to show your qualifications, your testing and opinions. And then you want to, of course, put in a CV showing if you've ever testified, if you've ever been qualified before. All that needs to be part of your Rule 26. So if you're not familiar with the federal Rule 26 report, you can look that up, but there is a couple things that you have to be able to put in that report, and your CV is a big one. You want that attached. It is part of the report. It's part of the rule. So you want it attached and make sure that it doesn't get left out because it can cause you pain later when you get into the court system with that report. They can say that everything wasn't there that you needed as the rule calls for. The trial was held in the first judicial court in Caddo Parish in Louisiana, North Louisiana. It was held on March 13th through the 22nd. I was called to testify. I testified almost a full day. I stayed and witnessed 90% of the case before, or testimony before I testified. They wanted me there to see everyone else's testimony from the gas company to the wife of the deceased. When she was put on the stand, they attacked her. They put a female attorney up and they absolutely went after her, saying that she knew that this was going to happen and she meant for this to happen to the jury. I watched the jury and there were several women on the jury, and I watched their faces turn to where there was a lot of anger on that jury because they had already put up some doctors and talked about his injuries and talked about the scrubbing that he went through, talked about him dying 3 times, being brought back before actually dying the last time. Yes. Well, good question. So the question was the anger because of the cross-examination, or was it because of they thought she did it? And sitting in the back watching it and listening to it, of course, I thought that they're angry at the attorney who's attacking her. But then you start questioning, well, you don't really know. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going out there, and they're putting stuff that even sometimes everybody stops and thinks, you know, when you look at a life policy for over $1 million, it's just been renewed. You know, I mean, it'd make anybody stop and think. You know that this is gas. You smelled the gas and you see your husband smoking and you send him out. I mean, so which way are they going? But, you know, you think, at least at the time, I thought that it was because of the way that they were attacking her. They had this older lady on the stand crying, putting her back through the entire experience. And then when I had to go up and testify about the skin and about the things that I saw and did, watch her go back through that because she had never seen those pictures and stuff, and watching her go through what the doctors had said that they'd done to him. And it was, it was brutal. It was quite, it was quite an experience to sit there and go back and forth watching this case go for that long. The jury of 12 came back and said that the gas company had 80% liability. The city or the town, Shreveport, had 15%, and the occupant themselves had 5%. So I'm gonna ask you a question, and then hopefully I'm gonna give you the answer. We had a focus group several times with the attorneys that I was working for, where we actually put on the case in front of strangers that they paid $100 to come sit in a room, and they brought me in and I would tell my story, and they wanted to see how and what parts of my report did they want me to testify. Was the part about it being put in the ground for over 100 years, was that important to people, or was it something that people didn't care about? And I can remember one of the focus groups, they had an old guy sitting in the room, big old guy, country guy, he had overalls on. And I'm telling you, I'm not sure, but I don't think he had anything underneath them overalls, because he didn't have a shirt on, and I don't think he had anything else either. He's sitting there. He was very concerned when he walked in the room when he was gonna get his $100, if that was gonna be now or he had to sit here to get his $100. So they give everybody their, you know, their check or money order, had him sign some documentation, and he's happy. So he's sitting there, and they bring me in, and I start with just the history of when the gas was put in, and there was a fire that occurred. I haven't even got to what happened. I just said that there was a fire that occurred. Haven't seen a picture yet, only the history. I'm done. They got to talk to him. So everything's put on a recess, kind of, you know, we're going to take a break here, and we're going to pull this guy off the side. They want to talk to him. And they go in, and they tell me later I was not in there with him. They said that they sat him down, and they wanted to know what was his concerns. What did he think he learned that quick? And he said, well, of course, the gas company has to be responsible if they got a pipe in the ground that's over 100 years old and they didn't change it out. There's new technology, there's new pipes today, and they should have put a new pipe in the ground, and it shouldn't have been this old clay one. All right, so, okay, that's kind of tough, you know, because one, it's not clay pipe. Two, it's, so there's some things there, but they're gonna ask him, so if you were gonna reward the family, what would you reward them? He thinks for a second, and he says $1 billion. You got to teach him a lesson. So that guy needs to be on the jury, right? They really want to find him or his family so they can put him on the jury. But it actually goes to the jury. And one other thing that I learned in a case like this is that they give a piece of paper to the judge, and the judge is supposed to write down in case there's a problem or there's an issue that comes up, and the jury's decision isn't used or it's looked at again later. They asked the judge what he thinks and how he would rule, and they asked him what his value would be if you're going to pay the family or reward the family. They came up with a difference of $5,000. So it was a very close decision. The attorneys that hired me went in asking the gas company for $50 million, and they would not go any lower. There was some offers made even up during the trial, several days. They would meet in little parts of the courthouse, and they would make them an offer, and, you know, kept going up and kept going up. But the attorneys that I was working for believed that this was a $50 million case and wanted all $50 million. This is Dr. Williams. Dr. Williams lived for 81 days. There was some goods and there was some bad days. They thought they had him a couple times to where he might make it. He was burned over 90% of his body. If he would have made it, he would have had, issues for the rest of his life. He died on October the 19th. They rewarded the family $9.5 million. Good question. So the question was, how did they find the occupant 5% at fault? And we got to talk to some of the jury. The one that would stick around, the attorneys got to talk to them and ask them different questions, and that was one of the questions. How do you find the occupant 5% fault? He went outside, smoking a cigar, more than likely relighting his cigar while looking for a gas leak. As a 60-something-year-old man, as a doctor, the jury believed that he should have knew better. That's a tough statement to make, and all I can tell you is Dr. Williams paid the price for that 5%. So, yes, sir. Yes, we did. We found it in the backyard, in that walkway next to the barbecue pit, on the ground. And it is within a couple feet of the skin that was on the wall, that was left on the wall, but we had nothing really on the lighter that said that the lighter was used, other than there was no skin, there was no heat damage to it. It's just a large lighter, and it was green. It was a green, but it was a barbecue lighter. It wasn't one of these. It was a green lighter laying on the ground. So it was hard to say, and it goes back to the light switch. If he was standing in the doorway of the light switch and flipped it on or flipped it back off, or vice versa, the skin is just on the wall where the house. So it's hard to make that test or figure out what would have happened there. And I saw a question over here. Yes. No. And a lot of that was because no one ever went and was able to, you couldn't talk to him. He couldn't talk. He was he had a tube down his throat. But he was writing notes to his wife at times and doing things like that. And of course, there was times that everybody thought he was going to make it. And no one ever went in there from my team, from any other team, from the law enforcement team, state police, fire department. No one ever went in and asked him in writing, in notes, what happened. And it's probably a spot that we missed, but it was also one of those things that is very difficult. I showed up at the hospital, and just trying to talk to the family, and this was a couple weeks afterwards, just talking to the family, I didn't have the nerve to ask if I could go see Dr. Williams. I just, it was a very tough situation talking to the family, and he was in a bad, and he had already died once they brought him back. And I didn't have the guts to do it. I recently had one where 2 children were badly burned. The daughter died. The young child was in care, had a tube down his throat. And I did go to Children's Hospital, made it all the way to the room, opened the door. And when I saw the child, I couldn't, he was a 13-year-old child, burnt. Most of it was not bandaged. They were doing scrubs on him. He was in a lot of pain. I didn't have the nerve to do that one either. So I found out now, or if it happened again, I'd probably find somebody that I would call a subject matter expert that can go do that interview for me, because I'm not doing it. Yeah. If anybody's out there that thinks that is easy, raise your hand. I'll put your name down. I'll be the first one to call you. You can do that for me. So So there was a newspaper article there that we could have clicked on, but I don't want to run real late and get into Steve's. And I want to go through a few things here. This is some of the stuff that we did. Of course, research, subject matter experts were called, testing, and focus groups. Who are you? And this is a question that I kind of ask at this point. And I'm going to use a sports analogy here, and you can use baseball, football, whatever you want. But, you know, are you the coach, the owner, the quarterback, or one of the running backs or receivers? And that's a big thing. That you kind of got to figure out where these attorneys are putting you. When I showed up on this scene, these attorneys said, and they want them used. They wanted every rock turned over. They wanted to see what was underneath it, and they wanted to know everything that could possibly be done. And they didn't care what the price was. Never once did they ask me when I said I wanted to hire this person. They never asked me how much an hour that person cost. They gave me the red light. Unlike a lot of other my clients, I never had to wait on a check from these guys, not the first time. I got some clients now that I'm still waiting a year and they haven't paid me yet. So these guys were great, and they gave me a green light to do whatever I wanted. So I took advantage of it. Yes, Dale. Yes, I was. The most that I heard was around $7 million, which was kind of what they offered, from what I understand, in the case, or what they got in the case in Texas where the young girl was killed. So, you know, that's kind of, look, I don't know where the calculator is that can figure all that stuff out. I understand there is a calculation that you can take somebody's livelihood, somebody's age, somebody's suffering, and you can figure all that stuff out. That's another subject matter expert that you hired, not me. And that was a statement that was made. I'm not going to say it was made on this case, but that was a statement that was made that they were going to wait and see because it's a lot cheaper if he dies than it is if he's alive. You know, it's interesting how some of these things work out, and when attorneys looking at trying to reach a settlements, that you know, I guess it's a lot more expensive to take care of somebody's medical and medicines and doctor visits and pain and suffering for years. Knowing your role is important. I did have subject matter experts that were hired that wanted to get over into other people's work and wanted to know what other people are saying. The attorney wanted me to know what everybody was doing and wanted me to know if it not only fit into my scenario, but was it something that I needed? Was it something that I was going to use? Was the soil sampling results something that supported my theory, and how? And not only did he want to see or hear how, he wanted to see it. So he gave me the red light to, and these are all the different reports and witness statements and all that. We're not going to spend time on all these. This is where state police showed up, actually wrote a ticket because they didn't call the incident in to the hazmat team within an hour. There was an argument that it was called in to 911 when she made the call and said it was a gas leak. Whatever, there was $533 paid for that fine, I think. So it's not very expensive if you don't call in a hazmat scene. There was call logs. There's, you know, just on and on, all the different stuff that was done. The history of Arkansas Gas, actually going to the library, going to the old buildings and pulling how this history, how it was put in, who put it in, you know, what, how it was done. That was pretty cool just to be involved in that and learn that stuff. This is 921's statement about gas, and that if you don't know it, it's a very unique situation to hire a subject matter expert. If you don't know how to test gas piping, hire somebody that does. If you don't know how to collect it, hire somebody that does. So, you know, there's some good recommendations in 921 about how to handle a scene like this. These are some of the subject matter experts that we looked at. Electrical, mechanical engineers, most of us use those throughout our career. Never did I imagine that I was going to hire a geotechnician engineer. That's the guy who tests dirt. I didn't know that. So he kind of takes care of that. I had a petroleum and natural gas engineer, a surveyor that wanted to survey and go back to the old property, how it was put in, find out where things was done. Yep. Yeah, so Dale just said that 921 calls out that if you're not familiar in an area and you don't use a subject matter expert, that you can probably be questioned on, you know, that your opinion is probably not evaluated or as good as it would be if you used all these experts. And I agree. The private investigators that was used were to conduct a lot of the interviews. Because after a while, I was just tired of interviewing people. So it was a lot easier to hire somebody for $25 to take the interviews, go sit them down in a hotel conference room, video record it, and talk to these people for not just 10 or 15 minutes. Talk to them for an hour. I want to know everything from the time that they've been there, how long have they lived at that house, have they ever had a problem? Did they ever have their gas system lit? And these were all in that area. So I wanted, you know, everybody in that area done, not just the neighbors right around the house. Most of this y'all are familiar with. The SEMs and EDSs we used on the pipe damage to see if we could tell how old it was, or we even had a hardness test done. We had of the pipe, we tried to do an aging test, which was quite interesting, because if you're going to do an aging test, you got to have something to compare it to. So, you know, it kind of makes me stop and think about the aging of old artifacts that they find. How do they know what they're comparing it to is actually that old if they had to guess at that one too? So anyway, yes. No, we took, myself and my wife and I took and tried to figure it out one time. And we think it was, you know, close to $1 million. You know, their bill for me was pretty good. Yeah, it was pretty good. Yes, this is actually a tie from a piece of art that this case bought that my wife wanted, and the artist paints these ties or makes these ties as well. So it's a piece of art, not a pizza art. And if I told you the artist's name, I'd probably screw that up because it's something like Dwib, whatever. My wife tried to answer me and I still couldn't understand it. So it's fine. So, yeah, so we looked at these. This is some more of the different testing experts that I hired to look at and some of the testing that was done. We did do x-rays on artifacts. Of course, a lot of microscope stuff. So hardening test, which was interesting. We were able to test pipe to find out how much pressure you would have to put on it. And interesting that it changes the longer your pipe is. So then you got to look at where's your supports at. So if you're fracturing it at a center and you have 6 inches of no dirt underneath it, that's going to be a lot stronger piece of pipe than if you have 2 foot of space that's open. So that's a quite interesting test that, I learned something from. And then back digging a hole, putting the dirt back underneath the pipe is important. If you just put it back underneath there loosely, you really haven't done much. It has to be put underneath there with, some pressure. It's got to have some supports. It's got to be really packed in there to where it does a good job, which is why the gas company is supposed to fill up the hole and not let somebody else do it. Yeah. So we were able to actually prove that stretch mark in the boot was from a tooth of a excavator, but it had no damage. And then, yeah, and then we ended up looking at the chain issue. Did the chain crack the pipe all the way around? Was it just cracked in that surface that you see on the photo? Because that photo, again, was taken before the pipe come out of the ground, before we saw the crack. That's a photo that we went back and enlarged, brought up to where we could see that crack, but it wasn't seen when we was digging it out. So, yes, ma'am. Yes. From what I understand, the question is, was there any changes? Was there any pressure put on the gas company to go finish the 92 miles of pipe? I understand that there's really very little, if any, left in the city of Shreveport in the ground at this point. And that was somewhat stated the way I just said it in the trial. So I would assume today, which is 2 years later, fire happened in 16, trial was in 18. We're standing here today in 2020. I would hope there's none, but the way it was answered, it was little to none left in the ground at the time of the trial. This is the computer modeling that was actually done. We had a computer modeling done on it. It was pretty cool that I got to hire a group to do the computer modeling that could show and test different results for me. And then they gave me the money to actually build and test the full project. So that was pretty cool. If we do it the same way all the time, you're going to end up with the same answer. So that's just hope that's something we take away from this today. And if I have a couple more minutes, and I know we went quite long, 4 o'clock, can I just 5 minutes to share this? I could take 5 minutes to do it. Because it is a funny case, and I think people would enjoy it. This is I was contacted by a client and asked to go do how do I get to this thing and not on there? I can talk while you're coming up here and fixing this. I was contacted by a client, and when I answered the phone, I actually answered the phone that day. Didn't go to the ladies in the office, and the guy says, "Hey, Rick." So immediately, I think the guy knows me. Says, "Yeah." He says, "Hey, I need you to run over into New Orleans. I have a wooden barbecue pit that's caught on fire, and I want you to take a look at it." All right, who is this? He goes, "No, seriously, Rick. I got a wooden barbecue pit, and it's damaged this person's garage, and I need you to check it out." Now I'm kind of getting a little, that Southern attitude picks up a little bit. I'm like, "Who the hell is this?" He goes, tells me his name now, and he goes, and I don't recognize him. He goes, I got a wooden barbecue pit that's damaged the house. I said, well, you know the problem, right? It's wood. He goes, yeah, but I need you to check it out because, you know, we really think something happened here. I go, yeah, it's wood. Um, he says, and, you know, I said, nobody's tested? I mean, dude, you're not putting barbecue baguettes in a wood barbecue pit without it catching on fire. You didn't have anybody test this? He goes, yeah, it was tested in China. I said, well, there's problem number 2, right? So he finally talks me into going over and checking this thing out. And sure enough, it is a wooden barbecue pit that's got Tito's written on the front of it. Vodka Company made some of these to pass out and give to people as a promotion. It is a wooden barbecue pit with a grill on the top of it to cook hamburgers on one side and a cooler on the other side that hold a 6-pack. So nothing wrong here yet, right? Hold my beer and watch this. So we go pick it up, take it back to my place. I start trying to figure out, I put him on FaceTime with me. This is before COVID, before I knew there was a thing called Zoom. And I'm like, dude, this thing is really wood. And yeah, it's going to burn. There's nothing protecting it. He says, well, I want you to test it. I want you to do whatever you need. I said, well, I don't want to test this one. This is the one that caused the damage. So can you get me another one? He says, sure, I'll have it there tomorrow. So he sends me one. So this is the one that burned. This is the insulation that's around the metal container that holds the barbecue pit. That's the insulation that they think is going to protect the wood. They just stapled it right to the inside of the wood. No problems there either. It's a metal box that's just tacked weld, so it's not waterproof. When I talked to the guy about how he lit his pit for the first time, it was a one-time cook. He squirted some charcoal lighter fluid in there before lighting his barbecue pit to cook some hamburgers. That's what the bottom of it looked like. Contact the client, said that, you know, not only do we have a problem, but I needed an exemplar. He sent me one. I was able to put 16 thermocouples on it. I was able to heat up some briquettes to put inside of it and to see what temperatures I could get on the wood. It only took me less than 15 minutes to bring the entire, that's the leak test that I showed to show that it was just welded. That's the unprotected area around the metal basket that goes inside. What's that? Well, yeah, they should have used asbestos to pack the whole thing, or they should have just made a metal barbecue pit. So this is the testing we did. 16 thermocouples, was able to give you temperatures, all the different areas. Within 10 minutes, I had so much smoke and fire starting on the bottom. And this was briquettes that I heated in another device and brought and put in here because I didn't want to pour charcoal lighter fluid. I didn't want to do anything to it to set it on fire. I wanted to see if just the heat itself would do it. This is the bottom. This is one of the thermocouples that's running through the bottom hole. This is a hole that they had in the bottom. I'm not sure what it was for. It was supposed to be for draining, or if it was just supposed to be for providing more air to the metal box that was going to heat up the wood in the first place. That was the damage to it within 10 to 15 minutes when I stopped it, just so I wouldn't keep it. So I asked myself what the problem was, and I came up with the same problem, that it was wood. I called him and said that, hey, we have a problem. How many of these things are really out there? He says, well, there's a bunch. I said, okay, how many? He says, well, I think we stopped at 500. I said, so do we have a list, or, you know, do you have where they went to? They go, no. Okay, you got a problem. I probably want you to know that you have 500 ticking bombs out there, that whenever that college kid that's been given this barbecue pit starts to want to barbecue on his balcony and he takes out the entire dorm and kills somebody, I hope y'all have some real good insurance. He says, well, we probably should recall that. I said, yeah, you probably should. But I don't think I don't think we are in this anymore. He goes, no, you're going to help us. What am I going to do? You know? Well, I quickly learned that there's such thing as a recall attorney that does this all the time. And he's going to be in touch with me. And they want pictures and they want testing results so that they can write this letter or this proposal that's going to go to the CPSC to be able to recall this product. So that was done. And if you go on your phones right now and you look up wooden barbecue pit, that's all you got to put in. It'll come up with a picture of the wooden barbecue pit sitting in my lab on a blue tarp before I set it on fire. First time I was involved with a recall, and it's probably one I won't forget because it's a wooden barbecue pit. I sent this out to some friends asking just a joke on Facebook with close friends, just saying, hey, look, I actually had a case on a wooden barbecue pit. Within just a few minutes, they sent me back where I could buy a one-time use barbecue pit made out of rubber drum, made out of those blue plastic drums that people were cutting in half, putting a grill on top, making barbecue pits out of them. So even though this happened commercially, there's still a bunch of plastic barbecue pits out there ready to start fires too. I think they want me to get off the stage, so I'm gonna quit. Thank y'all. Thanks again for inviting me out here. I hope this was something that everybody can just take something away from. And I'll see you next time. Thanks.
Okay, I'm bringing Randy Watson up here as well. Rick, we want to thank you so much for this presentation. I know we're a little bit pressed for time, and I know that the call came in from our past president, Tom Fee, to get you here. We can't thank you enough for please coming like you did and being here, Johnny, on the spot. So, Rick, on behalf of the California Conference of Forest Investigators, just accept this little certificate as our token of appreciation. Randy, yesterday, in an effort to go Hollywood, we missed a couple of housekeeping items. So also, thank you so much. And for everybody here, we have the president of IAAI and the second vice president of IAAI right here. So give them all a hand and we'll talk later. Tom, we want a 10-minute break. We're not going to break. Okay.